Premier League, ladies and gentlemen, one of the best competitions in world sport. It's not just me that says that. They have an audience in the billions every week. You just got to watch the Sky Sport channel that's dedicated to football and just see the programs where people call in from every single corner of the world. Everyone's got a Premier League shirt on. That is why the clubs play their pre-season matches in places like China and India, Lachlan. Why do they do that? Because they're selling hundreds of millions of shirts there. That's why. And it is only seemingly getting bigger, and more popular. And this season in particular, if you don't follow it, well, 3 teams with 10 games to go are all within just an absolute hairbreadth of each other. Who's going to win that title? There's a hell of a lot riding on these next few weeks, couple of months. We've lined up a correspondent from Arsenal, for Man City and Liverpool. We'll do it in that order. Let's talk Gunners first up. Adrian, do you genuinely in your heart believe that Arsenal not only can but will win this title?
Well, I do believe genuinely with my heart that they can, that Arsenal are good enough this time around. It's a year on from obviously leading the race for the title. At that point, I don't think that many Arsenal supporters really believed that they were good enough to hold off Manchester City, even though they pushed them very close. This time around, it feels a bit different. The team's more mature. They've been strengthened, obviously, by Declan Rice, massive player for Arsenal. Kai Havertz as well has come good. And I just feel that if you look at the form over the last 2 or 3 months, Arsenal have been the best team in the Premier League. It doesn't mean they're going to be champions, because they're up against 2 monsters of a teams, aren't they? I mean, Liverpool and Manchester City are just brilliant. But Arsenal are good enough. It's just can they outpoint these two giants?
What does it take from here, just in terms of the mentality of the club? And I think I saw a little bit of it against Brentford. It is just win and keep getting 3 points at whatever cost, isn't it?
Yeah, the mentality is obviously to keep winning. It's to... I think what was big about the Brentford result was that Arsenal found another way to win. They had to dig deep. They had to sort of be patient, not panic. I was inside the stadium and there was a lot of nerves among the supporters, but the players didn't show nerves. And that's a really, really positive sign, because you can't blow every team away 4, 5, 6-0. It's just impossible. But what Arsenal have, winning 8 games in a row this year, is massive momentum. And I think only 3 teams in Premier League history have won more consecutive matches at the start of a season, and they have all gone on to win the league. So momentum really does matter. But I think this season boils down to what Arsenal do at the Etihad Stadium. I really do. I think if Arsenal can go there and get a win, that they would then potentially be in pole position to do it. But that is a big ask, especially given Arsenal's recent history away to Manchester City. But I've got to say, I've never been more confident in an Arsenal team going there in search of a win. I think they're capable of it this time.
Man City and Liverpool, who's the biggest danger out of those 2 teams, or do they carry equal?
Yeah, I still think City. I do, because they're course and distance. They know what to do, don't they? They're relentless. They're a machine. They've got Haaland, which is obviously a massive, boost for them, and Kevin De Bruyne. That combination is a little bit special. So, I think Manchester City are the team that Arsenal would probably feel that if they finish above City, they'll win the league. That said, Liverpool have come on incredibly well, and their results have to be respected. And the narrative with Jurgen Klopp leaving at the end of the season is that this is going to be Liverpool's season. And I think they're both sensational teams. They're both good enough to be title winners this season. But the difference is Arsenal are too. And what I think people need to think about here is the gap that Arsenal have closed. 3 or 4 years ago, Arsenal were 25, 30 points behind these 2 teams. They weren't even playing the same sport at times. It was the gap was just gargantuan. But now it isn't. Arsenal closed that gap. Mikel Arteta's sort of built this team. It's improved year on year on year. And finally, we can say that we've got an Arsenal team that's capable of mixing it with English football's best. And if it's English football's best, it's European football's best, isn't it? So, yeah, I'm really, really proud of the way that the team has grown. But getting over the line to get more points than Liverpool and City is tough. It's seriously tough. But they can do it.
Final question is, what would it do for Arsenal Football Club 20 years after the Invincibles or more, to be able to finally shut the door on that and actually re-establish a new chapter?
Oh, it'd be massive. Yeah, it's been a long 20 years. Nice little bit of symmetry if Arsenal can do it, of course, this season. Look, for too long, Arsenal were a cup team. They were a top 4 team in the latter years of Arsene Wenger that won the odd cup. And really, from where they were winning titles on a consistent basis, it was them and Manchester United every year. It wasn't good enough. And only a few years ago, Arsenal were in 8th, 7th, 6th. To be champions would mean so much. And I think that it would re-establish Arsenal in the elite of European football. And they haven't been in that company for so long now. A whole generation has suffered pain. And I know that Arsenal fans over there in New Zealand were, the whole generation, the younger fans, they've had to put up with some really bad results, some really big beatings down the years. And they've probably taken a little bit of stick from their mates. Liverpool, City fans and Chelsea fans have no doubt, tormented Arsenal fans. But yeah, to win the championship this year, it would mean so much to the fan base, and it would elevate the club back to where I think they should be, and that is sort of in the true elite of European football. So yeah, I'm dreaming that it will happen this year. If it doesn't, I am still confident that in the next couple of seasons, Arsenal will get there.
Adrian Clarke, appreciate your time, my friend. We'll go to Craig Cumming in the BTE, the British Alpha Experience, after 3 o'clock. Let us talk Man City now. Chances off. Sam, you got out of Anfield with a point. Everything's square. We go into the last 10 games of the season with just a hair separating 3 teams. And this is the first time, from what I gather, in the whole history of the Premier League that it has been this close with 3 teams still with 10 games to go. So the first question is obviously, do you genuinely believe that you will win the title from here?
It's a good question. I'm just actually working on an article for The Athletic right now, looking at their run-in, and with those 10 games left. But when you factor in potential Champions League quarterfinals coming either side of games, semi-finals coming either side of games, if they get to the FA Cup semi-final, everything needs to be moved around. You start to think, even the games that look pretty winnable, like Luton at home, they'll be making loads of changes because of the Champions League game. They got Wolves at home, but they'll be making changes because of the Champions League game. They've got Spurs away, obviously Arsenal at home at the end of the month. It is a really difficult run. And now I've looked a bit more in depth at it, and I'm starting to think that no, it might be a bit too tough for them this season, because I don't think it's been the best City this season. They're still really good. That's why we're talking about them being in the title race and just 1 point behind. But if they're going to click and do what they did last season, then it's going to have to come pretty soon. But that said, they only clicked and did what they did last season because they sorted out right in the middle of March, start of April. So there is time. But yeah, that Arsenal game is going to have to come then, because if it doesn't, it might be too late.
Look, it's the attritional factor, and Liverpool are going through the same thing with being in all of those competitions. The attritional factor, though, look, when you compare it to sports like the NBA, it doesn't matter what it is, the NFL, when you start playing post-seasons, and I kind of look at the Champions League like that, well, you're effectively adding almost another half a season to your season. You're playing close to 60 games, and you might be able to do that for 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons. But then by the time the 4th season rolls around, that's why no one has been able to do this in the Premier League.
Possibly. But I think those demands, the fact that they've won 3 in a row, that was rare enough. And then to win the treble, obviously, that's rare enough too. Obviously, I think there's loads of different reasons why 4 in a row hasn't been done in the Premier League. Normally, complacency sets in way before that. I think City, up until now, obviously the most likely team to be able to do it. But yeah, there's loads of different reasons why not. But yeah, that attritional factor, they've been able to handle it in the past. at least in terms of the Premier League, in the FA Cup, they've normally come up short in the semi-finals because it's just after they've had a tough quarter-final. And they arrive at Wembley, they play a top team, they make a few changes and they get beat. So that's where they've dropped it, talking about that attritional factor. And then, I don't know, Champions League, that Real Madrid shock a couple of years ago when they conceded 2 goals in a couple of minutes at the end. That can happen to anyone at the Bernabeu, but also I suppose they did have a lot of injuries. So, yeah, it's very difficult to... That's why it's so difficult to do the treble, basically. But to keep doing it year after year, I think they've shown that they can manage that. For me, it's just a question of quality this time.
Who do you fear the most out of the two that are beside you, Arsenal or Liverpool?
I suppose Liverpool. Look, the Europa League is not especially taxing compared to the Champions League, but obviously you do have the Thursday to Sunday factor. But yeah, if they were to kind of breeze through in first legs like they did the other night, it can obviously allow bit of time in the second leg. And Liverpool, it's not the easiest fixture list that they've got. There's still some potential banana skins there. They got United and like Fulham away and Wolves at home. Games like that could be difficult, but they've got the more forgiving run compared to Arsenal and City. So I think Liverpool are the one I'd fear the most.
Why is City not as imperious this year? Look, to win a title, you don't win every game 5-0, we know that. But it has been for quite a long, feels like a long time anyway now, that City are getting these points, but they're doing that without really overextending or playing to the full noise that we know Man City can. Are you thinking that there is going to be this 9, 10, 12, 14 match winning streak coming again? Because that's what has won the title in the last few years.
I'm not sure, but I think the reason why they've not been at their very best and not looked like City is because they used to control in games. And obviously Anfield yesterday, look, they've gone to Anfield at the past even when they've been very good and they've been blown away, or they went there last season and they played pretty well but they lost and all this kind of thing. So that can happen at Anfield. But look, this season they've lost some of the players who take the extra touches and keep the game a bit safer and stop the counter-attacks against them. Like Gundogan going was a big loss for that. Mahrez too. But Grealish has been missing a lot of the season, either through injury or suspension, or, to be fair, he's just not been playing well. And if you look at how Julian Alvarez played yesterday at Anfield, it's a perfect example because he's always trying to go forward, but he's not protecting the ball enough. He's losing the ball so much. If you lose a ball in a game like that, the other team go down the other end and they have counter-attacks and it's dangerous. And then if you're not so good on the second balls, and I've got a theory, I've got nothing really to back it up, but I don't feel like City was strong on the second balls this season. So basically, I feel like... So if you look at the Chelsea game, for example, when they drew 1-1 at the Etihad, and they should have still won that if Haaland had taken his chances, but Chelsea really rattled them. And if you look at the players ahead of Rodri, it was Doku, Foden, De Bruyne, Alvarez and Haaland. So 5 top-class players, but none of them there are slowing that game down. They're all going forward. And if you're all pushing forward all the time, if you're all attacking all the time, you're either going to blitz them with goals, which Haaland should have done, or you're going to give up loads of chances to counter-attack. And also, you've got players there who are less likely to put a tackle in and win the ball back. So they've had games that have been much less under control than recently. And for me, that's the difference this season. That's why they're still good, because they've got quality players. But they're not the best, because the best City is the City that can control games with players like Gundogan and Bernardo Silva. Sam
Lee from The Athletic out of Manchester, thank you very much for that. That's fascinating. I love hearing that kind of insight, because I don't watch enough Man City to realise that. But yeah, it's a style change. They're not spluttering. They're not faltering, but they just haven't swept. So they should be dicking most sides that they play 4 or 5-0. They could pick 2 or 3 teams. I still think that fixture congestion might stop them. We're talking Premier League. We've done Arsenal, we've done Man City. Leaving Liverpool to lucky last, Gareth Roberts. He started the Anfield Wrap, now the Late Challenge podcast. What are the Scousers' chances? Gareth, so we've talked Arsenal, we've talked Man City. It's a hell of a title race for everyone that's not a fan of these 3 clubs, because, it's just nervous stress and tension for you blokes. Who's going to take the title out from here with 10 to go?
Well, as a commentator once said, and not in our favour, it's all up for grabs now. And it literally is, isn't it? We're looking at it as Liverpool fans and we're saying, well, I'm arguing to my mates, it's in our hands, and they're saying, well, it's not in our hands, is it? Because, Arsenal have got the same points as us, they've got a better goal difference, they scored more, they conceded less, all of that. And I'm like, yeah, but they've got to go to the Etihad, and I just don't see them personally going there and winning. And if they don't go there and win, and we just keep winning, then it is in our hands in that respect. That's how I'm looking at it. So I think if we win all 10, we've won the league. That's how I'm processing it currently. And I think, there's some people who are throwing some spanners into that argument, but I think, my immediate friends who we go the match with, that's our basis at the moment. We're like, there's 10 games. If we win all 10, we've won the title.
I was thinking anyone who wins 9 out of the last 10 will probably get it, but, you could be right. I mean, Man City have proven in the past that they can close a league out by winning 12, 13, 14 games. Do you consider them to be your major danger? Or the caveat I put on all of this is the congested fixture list that they're going to have, because they will progress through the Champions League. It's very difficult to see anyone knocking them out over 2 legs, maybe in the final, but over 2 legs. Then, they've got the FA Cup. So they've got all of these fixtures. And the same with you blokes, whereas if Arsenal get, just to concentrate on that title, so apply that perspective to it too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And this is the thing, this is the really intriguing thing about it. And you said it earlier, didn't you, that to everyone else watching in, if you're not a fan of these 3 clubs, it's fascinating. I can't think of a situation where it's been this tight at this stage of the season between 3 clubs. We've seen it a number of times between 2 clubs, but for it to be 3 is incredibly intriguing and incredibly different and incredibly exciting. So there's going to be sort of real pressure on every game. And that's why, look, I did it on my own podcast yesterday, where you go through the fixture list of all 3 teams and say, well, I think we'll win that, and I think they'll lose that. But at the end of the day, we all know that it never unfolds quite that way, because the pressure gets to them. We've got situations where Liverpool are playing first, so they get to go top, and then the others have got to react to that and all that kind of stuff. And does that affect how they're performing on the day? And there's loads and loads of sort of things spiraling off that it could go in any direction really. So that's what's fascinating about it. When I look at our sort of fixture list, I don't see too many on there that I'm sort of frightened about, if you like. Whereas I'm selling myself when I'm looking at Arsenal's fixture list as an example. Well, they've got to go to Manchester City. They've got to go to Tottenham. And obviously, Tottenham have now put themselves right back in the mix for a top 4 place. And also, Tottenham don't like Arsenal. So, that's a local derby. There's that edge to it anyway. Tottenham's ground, by the way, is fantastic. And, they're able to generate a decent atmosphere in there. Not as good as Anfield, because I would say that, but nevertheless a decent one. So that'll be a hard place for Arsenal to just go and turn them over and get 3 points. So, there's loads of little bits where I'm looking at, Arsenal, I'm looking at City, and I'm saying they could trip up there, they could trip up there. And of course, because I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm like, we'll just breeze through it all. We'll win all 10. Let's see where we end up. Already 1 trophy in the cabinet. We've given ourselves a brilliant chance. And look, believe me, I've supported Liverpool for long enough now, for years and years and years, decades, where there've been plenty of seasons where this point in the year, March, we weren't playing for anything. And this season, we're playing for everything. And it's not the first time we've been in this position with Jurgen Klopp. So that alone is enjoyable. I know there's like this sort of thing about, if you finish second or if you finish runners-up, then you're losers, and everyone goes, nah, you're not very good. I've sort of started to look at it differently as I've got older and thought, well, you know what? It's not just about lifting the silver at the end. It's about the journey. It's about how each weekend feels during a football season. And I can tell you now, each weekend during this football season has been a hell of a lot of fun, and there's loads more to come. So we're all enjoying it in Liverpool. We're all having a great time following Liverpool. The tickets are like gold dust. If anyone listening has got a spare ticket for Old Trafford at the weekend, give me a shout, because I haven't got one. So, everyone's trying to grab the Willy Wonka golden ticket and see the last dance with Klopp, the last season with Klopp, the last time we play Man City, the last time we play Man United. Everything's the last time currently. And I think that in itself is a motivation.
Devlin. You better believe it! The platform.